Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys. And Blake is actually out this week. We're going to do a quick little recording with him, and then something popped up on the family side of things, so he's got to miss this one, but he'll be back next week. In the meantime, though, we've got a guy that you guys will be hearing a little bit more of, but this is Robbie Bettelon, also from DBB. And Robbie, welcome to the Pindown. Thanks for coming back on. It's actually been longer than I thought since we've had you join.
Yeah, I can't remember when the last time was, but I always enjoy the start. The beat, I always feel like I get into the beat. So yeah, dude, great to be back. What up, Harry? Yeah, so happy to talk hoops with you today, Wes. Big shoes to fill. I love that you were loving the yeah, absolutely. And I love that you were loving the music, because we actually had to switch to that because we were getting some copyright issues on YouTube, and this one's supposed to be open source. But I was kind of I can get a little nerdy, Robbie, and I liked that this was Chopin. This is kind of a classical music riff there with a little bit of heavy beat in the background. I was like, that was very me. I was excited that Blake allowed me to do that. So I'm glad you were rolling with it. Yeah, for sure.
It's very unique, I feel like.
Yeah. And embrace the nerdiness, Wes. I'm right there with you. Right there with you.
Well, let's leverage the nerdiness, right? We're going to jump right in, and we're going to go through, guys, all of the offseason moves so far. Okay, so that's going to take us all the way from the draft to the most recent John Collins signing, and a little bit of rumor stuff as well after that. We're going to kind of go through in chronological order here. But if you're tuning in live, of course, thank you for that. And be sure, as Richard has already done, to ask any questions that you have. We'll be getting to those when they are relevant as well. But Robbie, we haven't had the opportunity to get your perspectives on the Pistons draft. So obviously they make a little bit of a trade up here to add Ebuka Okorie. They also trade back into the second round. They didn't have a pick. They traded into the second round to get Ugana Onyenso. And what were just your general thoughts on those two moves?
Yeah, initial thoughts were not Okorie when the trade up happened. Assumed Trajan and his love for wings, was maybe a cam car or something like that. But like, I enjoy the selection now after I didn't dive deep into prospects this year, which is kind of nice as a Pistons fan now, where you're like, oh, we picked 21, like. Yeah. I'll just find out when Trajan picks. But after watching him, like, super, super fun. I like how different of a guard he is than Cade, with his speed, with his quickness, like, so shifty, where Cade is big and strong. His ability to get to the paint at his size is super, super impressive. Curious with his size, though, how that holds up, finishing wise. I know that he had to really carry the load at Stanford, and was really basically their 1, 2, and 3 option. But it'll be super, super interesting to see how he fits in the league. He's an exciting prospect, and I'm curious where he sits in the depth chart right now, though. Like, I'm not curious. I don't know if he's going to get playing time right away. I mean, obviously there's still more to go in the offseason, but I think that's what I'm most interested, is to see if he's going to get minutes right away. But the way that Trajan talked about him, hyped him up, traded up for him, I wouldn't be surprised if he somehow, some way got minutes to start the year.
I really wouldn't be either, honestly. So like you mentioned, the trade up, I think, is important to note. You're not effectively giving up your backup center in Isaiah Stewart, which I know wasn't officially the move, but is kind of sort of the move that happened. You're not really making that move for a guy that I just think you're figuring isn't ever going to factor into the rotation. So I think from the jump, you're already looking at him as someone that they at least think can come in and play. But from my perspective, I think what you just brought up is really the big selling point for him. He brings something that this roster doesn't have. He is a walking paint touch. He wins as a guard in a way that's just different than even a Marcus Sasser does. Marcus Sasser is very shifty. Okorie's very shifty, but Sasser is more shifty, like laterally and going in reverse. Mm-hmm. Okorie's very much a downhill guard, and he's creative with it. They just don't have anybody actually that can do that. It's different than Jaden Ivey even was for the Pistons. Mari Sankofa's brought it up, but Jaden Ivey was very much a downhill straight line driver, and he'd get creative around the rim as a finisher. But Okorie, he's got a lot more wiggle to him. So I've continued to put Okorie, and I'd be curious your thoughts on this now that you've kind of looked at more of his tape. But I continue to put him on some spectrum of like Colin Sexton to Donovan Mitchell as an upside sort of thing. I'm not saying Colin Sexton's his floor. I'm saying like a good outcome can look anything between those two. And I think one of the swing things for me is actually the weight. So you brought up that he's small. He's listed at 185 from Stanford. Colin Sexton's 190. Donovan Mitchell 215. I think both of those guys visually win in similar ways. So is that weight and even just the stylistic comparison something you'd be able to get behind?
Yeah, and I think he'll probably put on some more weight too, and get a little stronger. And I remember hearing him mention that he, wants to get better on the defensive end, and putting some weight on will help with that. I also saw that he compared himself to Colin Sexton, which is like a very cool, like he's not, I'm going to pick Tyrese Maxey, but I just think it's because their games to me are so similar. Not that I'm saying he's going to be Tyrese Maxey, but just the shiftiness, the ability to still get to the rim as a small guard. I saw that Kyrie has been a comparison, but Kyrie, I think, handles the ball differently than Okorie does. But yeah, him offering Colin Sexton as a comparison, where I also see him like fitting in as the same kind of role that Colin has. It was a cool comparison that he made.
Yeah, I always love when guys come in and don't compare themselves to the Hall of Fame point guard it'd be great if they did reach it, but they're just probably never going to do it because there's a reason those guys are so rare. So there's a good bit of self-awareness there, I thought, to bring up Colin Sexton. So yeah, I mean, if you were a fan that wanted the Pistons to add Colin Sexton to this roster, Trajan Langdon just said we have Colin Sexton at home when he drafted Ebuka Okorie. But all right, what did you think of the second round pick here on Onyenso, the big man and shot blocker?
Very excited about the idea of what he could become. I think that's kind of asking a lot for, 53 or whatever his pick was at. But shot blocking, no doubt, he's really the only legitimate rim protector at center right now for Detroit. So I like finding that after trading Stu. I also saw that he shot a little bit of, not a ton from deep, but shot a little bit from deep. And so the idea of like him becoming this 3-and-D center would, if he even developed a jump shot, I think I'm still asking for a lot. I think that's really cool, or that would be really cool. But I'm intrigued by his defense, given the and size, really. I think he's a 7-footer too. So he's only the only 7-footer on the roster. So one thing I also just am throwing in as a wrinkle, if Duren goes up against him in practice, I think that's really good for JD and just a like getting better opportunity of, going up against a kind of the people that he struggled with in the playoffs. I like the idea of him every day practicing against like this defensive 7-footer as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. Just to put this in perspective for you guys, Onyenso actually has 2 seasons where he's done this. All right. So last year at Virginia, in only about 18 minutes a game, he averaged 2.9 blocks per game. That's coming off the bench. He didn't start a single game. His sophomore year for Kentucky, the same, almost the exact same, at least for that number. It was 18.8 minutes per game and 2.8 blocks. Like he's done this now twice. So that was not a outlier year at all. He is just legitimately that good as a rim protector. And I think the point you bring up is great with him in practice, right? Like if Jalen Duren's being forced to go up against a bigger body, a type of big man that the team just didn't have as well last season, right? We talked about Okorie as a little bit stylistically of a player they've not had for a little bit, probably since Dennis Schroeder. Onyenso's very much in the same way. I mean, Tolu's a good fundamentally solid big, but he's not the 7-footer who's blocking a million shots. So I think it's a good point to bring up that Dern's going to have to go up against that in practice. But all right, let's get to the heartbreaking thing here, because this is what I've been dreading talking about a little bit. We haven't really had the chance to in too much depth. We brought it up a little bit when we had Tyler Metcalf on, but the Isaiah Stewart trade, Robbie, was that your heart getting ripped out as well? Because that's what it felt like to me. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, that one hurt, but at the same time, like he felt like not the odd man out, but he felt like the guy most likely to be moved. Like you referenced earlier, the trade with Memphis with like the 3 seconds and then the 3 seconds back. I am kind of disappointed that Stu really only got us like 4 spots up basically in the draft at the end of the day. So the 3 seconds, I was like, okay, like if you think about the $5 million per second rounder, Stu makes $15 million, like 3 seconds makes sense. But I feel like when I describe it in a way that we only moved up 4 spots in the draft, to me, it seems like Stu should have been worth more than that. But yeah, I mean, just like he was a Piston, he was a bad boy, like to his core. Just really embraced the city. Loved having him here, but I do feel like he was kind of the odd man out in terms of people being moved. I think one thing, and I think you and I have talked about this just in the past, but I wish he shot the ball more. And I don't know whether that is a Stu thing. I don't know if that's like a coaching thing. I felt like times he had, especially this past season, he had opportunities to shoot the long ball and just like wasn't confident in it or wasn't looking for it. And so he had one season back with Monty where I think he had 4 attempts per game and shot 38%. So like I was really excited about having the idea of a stretch big on the team, and he just never really like panned out to be that. And I thought he was going to end up in like Boston or somewhere where they would turn him into a stretch big and he would be an awesome stretch big. And so definitely like embrace the city. He was a Detroit Piston to his core and he'll be missed. But yeah, he did seem like the odd man out to me.
He's another guy too, just as a tangent on Stewart, like through the different regimes, he's done and did everything that could have possibly been asked of him, right? I mean, you bring up the Monty year, he's playing the 4 most of that season, which, you know, that's something I had advocated for him to do back in the day. It didn't work out all that well these past couple of seasons. I kind of wish he got to do it a little bit more with the way that Jalen Duren was expanding his offensive game. But even that being said, like, he was starting at the 4, being asked to put the ball on the floor on the deck and try to make a play. Like he would go all in on whatever he was doing. I really came to appreciate and love his game. So I'm going to miss him. I know you will too, but I'm going to miss him. I'm glad he ended up in Memphis. That seems like another good cultural fit for him. Another kind of, you know, Memphis is kind of the discount Pistons, right? Their grit and grind thing.
Yep.
That's kind of sort of the going to work era of Detroit basketball. So I think he'll fit in well, but I'm not looking forward to that Grizzlies game.
Yeah,
when that happens, because he's going to be out for blood.
Big physical guys, Boozer, Edie, Stu. Yeah, that's you're gonna need to hit
highly
the ice
competitive
tub
guys. All
after that game.
Yeah, and so Richard brings up here that felt bad getting basically nothing back for Isaiah Stewart. That still remains to be seen, right? So that deal's not finalized.
True.
It seems like it could be looped into the John Collins deal. It also could be looped into the Isaiah Joe trade, which we're going to be talking about here in a second. There is still a lot to play out on that, but I will say that if that is it, if it's essentially moving up 4 picks, as you've said, and getting back either Joe or Collins, I still think I'll be a little bit disappointed in that return, just given how much of a fan I was of Isaiah Stewart, even though I get it by the books. Is that fair? Or would you disagree?
And I thought, and I would assume most people thought is that he would be used in a Trey Murphy trade, to give him back to Troy Weaver. And so the fact that he wasn't used in that made me immediately think that Trey's just too expensive for Trajan.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll bring that up at the end. Let's talk a little bit Isaiah Joe, though. Adding a shooter like that is, I think, going to be pretty incredible for this roster. So just his numbers last year: 11.1 points per game, 2.5 rebounds a night, 1.3 assists, and he slashed 45, 42, 89. And kind of interestingly, so as a starter, his numbers have been pretty consistent. Last year it was down a little bit from 3, but it was 13.7 points, 3 rebounds, 1.9 assists on 42, 35, 96. That was 9 games that he started last season for OKC. The numbers for his career, though, over 38 games, almost dead on exactly the same. 13.7 points, 3.2 rebounds, 2.1 assists, and he picked up the 3-point percentage to 38. So, this was one of those deals that the Thunder just physically could not keep the number of players they were going to have. So they were going to have to shed some number of guys, and they just really didn't have any leverage to do that. So it seemed like a good bit of business for the Pistons to just kind of get Isaiah Joe for free. But in terms of what he brings as a player, Robbie, what do you think that role is going to look like for him in Detroit?
So this is my favorite offseason move so far. I'm really, really excited about Isaiah Joe and the fact that it only took 2 seconds after years and years and years of us acquiring second rounders, like to finally put them to use and to get somebody like Isaiah Joe, I think is a great deal for Detroit. My favorite Isaiah Joe stat is for the last 4 seasons, he's played over 70 games in every season, and in all 4 of those he's also shot over 40%. So just a guy who is like as consistent as it gets. He stays healthy, he shoots the ball really well. My like next thought, so with him being on the roster for at least the next 2 years, and he's only, I want to say, like upper 20s. I want to say he might have just turned 27 like today or yesterday. I think he just,
right? As of recording, he turned 27. Yeah. Okay.
So I feel like he, just kind of fits more with the younger guys. Just his age is closer to say, than somebody like Duncan. Part of me is intrigued about him starting at the 2. And I know that he really has never started, consistently in his life and has really been a bench player. But with his ability to I guess it's never guaranteed, but 2 more years left on his contract at a younger age, I feel like starting him immediately with the idea that maybe he can be the 2 for the next 2 years. And I'm interested to see who is Isaiah Joe like when he's pushed beyond anything that he's done so far in his NBA career. Like what does he look like with 28 minutes a game? I think there's still a little off the dribble game possibly. And, with a bigger role, can he expand on that a little bit? But really a guy next to Cade Cunningham who wants to shoot threes and shoots threes at a really high rate. I just want him playing next to Cade as much as possible, really.
Right, and name the shooter that Cade has not made better, right, up to this point in his career. Cade made Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala look legitimate out there for a little bit before they both politely asked to leave. Like, Cade Cunningham knows how to get shooters the ball where they want it, and I think that's really tantalizing when you look at a guy in Isaiah Joe who, like you said, over 40% the past 4 years on high volume. Like, can that get scaled up actually even more? That would be pretty nuts. And you just look at the past 2 years. I mean, Duncan Robinson had a career year. Malik Beasley obviously had a career year as well. Tim Hardaway Jr., no slouch. I think that the potential is very interesting. In terms of his off the dribble game, I'm with you actually. I was noticing that a little bit too. He's not a rim pressure guy.
Right.
But I do wonder if he might be able to, within 5 or less dribbles, work himself into a spot at 2 levels, because he's got a nice form jump shot. There's no reason it shouldn't be scalable off the dribble, either to a 3 or a mid-range pull-up. And I think if he could start to access some of that. Like you said, he's 27, still a little bit of room to grow, and he's been in limited roles. So he got off to a very slow start in Philly, and it only really picked up in OKC. But if you could expand that a little bit, maybe that scoring could uptick. Could this be like a 14, 15 point a night kind of guy? I think it's in there. I don't know if I'd necessarily bet on it, but I'm right there with you in being a little bit intrigued on how he could look with the starting lineup, especially if that can then push Duncan Robinson to the bench. And it does sound like they're keeping Duncan Robinson, but I think Joe is a better defender than Duncan Robinson is. I don't think he's a good defender, but he's better. He is a little bit better.
Not hard to be better than Duncan Robinson on defense. Add real quick to your Beasley and Duncan thing that you brought up with how well that they've both played. So Beasley set the record for most threes ever by a Piston, and then Duncan this past year was second. So it's funny that two guys have come to play in Detroit and immediately are the top two for most made threes in a season.
And it is just tantalizing to get a guy in Isaiah Joe who I think his skill set models a little bit more closely to what Malik Beasley brought than what Duncan Robinson brought. So if you're thinking conceptually we're going to put someone like Malik Beasley next to someone like Duncan Robinson, we're going to have both of them play off of Cade Cunningham, I am excited. I think that is
we've never seen that
the best spacing he's ever had. We've never seen that. Never.
It was always one of Tim Hardaway or one of Malik Beasley. It was one of Duncan Robinson, and that was about it for shooting last year. But yeah,
2 weeks of Tobias Harris in the playoffs.
Yeah, and maybe a few games of Kevin Huerter before the ankle injury or whatever brought him down.
Exactly 5 games of Kevin Huerter, and I've got the numbers to prove it. But let's look at this one here from Michael Dompier in the live chat. It says, I don't want to be critical of the Joe trade, but Simons went for $6 million, Kennard 6.5. It almost seems like Joe is kind of sort of overpaid. Kind of interesting point, Robbie. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, my math brain instantly goes that Joe is basically almost making double than both of them. I think that's fair.
That's very good math.
Thank you. Math degree. Kennard, same thing as Duncan, right? Anybody can be better than Kennard on defense, I think. I think you and I are similar where Joe, I don't think is terrible. I don't think he's a terrible defender. But it's an interesting point and not something that that I thought of, but I didn't see the Simons deal if it was more than 1 year. I think Kennard has a play. I forget what Kennard has, but at least Joe is team controlled 2 years was going to be my only, I guess, argument to that.
Yeah, and I think with these two names, Simons and Kennard, like I would rather have Joe than Luke Kennard. I think Joe's a better shooter, specifically a better movement shooter, and can do a little bit more off the bounce. Kennard's going to be a better passer, a better playmaker, but that's not a skill he really taps into all that often. So player to player, I think it makes sense that Joe would be a little bit more expensive than Luke Kennard. And really, when we're dealing of 6.5 to 11 mil, I know that's a lot of money, but that's not a lot of money in NBA terms. So I think it's defensible there. With Simons, though, I mean, he took that deal once he saw Jaylen Brown go to Philly, right? I mean, like he saw how the guards were playing last year in Philly, and he wanted a piece of that action. He's taking a year here to compete, be on a very good team, hopefully pump up his numbers, and then kind of cash in on a bigger contract, not too far into the future. And I get that gamble for him. I don't know if he would have been willing to make that gamble in Detroit. You know what I mean?
Right, especially with the way that our guard room looks right now. There's playing time for him at Philly, and we have too many guards at this point. So from his side, I don't think we would be an appealing place for him to want to come to.
On the topic of guards in Detroit, the next big move that the Pistons made was re-signing Kevin Huerter in a move that actually saved them cap space because his cap hold was massive. So that's just that's funny to me. He had like a $27 million cap hold. They signed him for a $9 million annual average value. So that tanks that way down. But getting ahead of myself here, 3 for $27 million. It's a $9 million average annual value. The third season per Omari Senko for the second from the Detroit Free Press was a team option. So that's nice, right? That's nice to have that in the back pocket. He averaged with the Pistons over 25 games. It was 8.6 points per game, 2.8 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 44% from the floor, 29% from three, 93% from the free throw line. But if you want a little bit of hope, Robbie, here are the 5 games I mentioned. So in March, for 15 games, he averaged 29% from three again on 4.5 attempts per game. But in April, for 5 games, it was 39% from three on 5.2 attempts per game. He also added an entire additional assist from March to April. He went from 2.7 to 3.8. So there's hope, maybe, right? Like, what'd you think about this one?
I'm fine with it. This is again another thing where, it's like, oh, they have Isaiah Joe and Duncan Robinson. Like, they got to get rid of one. It's like, we're allowed to have more than one shooter. And I also think the same, I would call Kevin Huerter a shooter, although maybe his past year or two haven't been great. From a money standpoint, like, I think him being worth $2.5 more million than Luke Kennard, like, I think Huerter's defense, he at least similar, I would say, to Isaiah Joe, where I don't think he's on a Duncan Robinson level, but I don't think he's a good defender, but he at least tries, I would say. And I think, hopefully he can just get some consistency. Like, I think he's team to team to team to team now that he's in Detroit. So maybe that he finally has some consistency, like knows that he has a home for a year or two, that he can kind of settle in, and then maybe his jump shot can come back. He can get in the gym with Vincent. I will also say, from a contract standpoint, I think he's going to make like $8 million, then $9 million, then $10 million, basically these next 3 years. Ron Holland will make more money than Huerter this year and more money than Huerter next year. So from a like payment standpoint, I'm not really concerned, with the differences, I guess, between other contracts and also just something that's like below 10 million. And if anything, like, at least Huerter has a history of shooting the ball, whereas we're still waiting on that from the Ron side of things.
And, Huerter does a lot more offensively than I think a Luke Kennard or even honestly an Isaiah Joe, proven anyway, has proven that he can do offensively. Kevin Huerter's a guy, he can, as the 3.8 assists per game in the month of April would suggest, he can play make for others. He's a very heady passer, very smart player offensively. He puts himself in good positions. He can operate a pick and roll every now and then. He's kind of a crafty, creative finisher, which I don't think you'd really expect out of a guy that has his reputation, right? So I think that Kevin Huerter brings a lot of good stuff offensively, and all that stuff would be a lot better if the jump shot were consistently back to where it was before he had that shoulder injury a few years ago. But, I think, you bring up the money. It's not enough to like guarantee that he's going to play. It is kind of where I've fallen on this. Like, the $9 million as an average value, if that's sitting on your bench as injury relief, you're cool with that. It's not a big deal. I get that that's not the most perfect of asset management, but you do need guys that can fill spots 11 through 15 on your roster, that can step in and play, and that also can be addable salary to a trade later on down the line. If you just have a bunch of veteran minimums, that's going to be very difficult to bring guys back. So I think that's kind of where, to me, Huerter slots in. Like, I think he's Okorie competition. I think this is them hedging their bets. They think Okorie is going to be filling one of the guard spots off the bench, probably along with Danis Jenkins or Isaiah Joe, one of the two, depending on how that starting spot shakes out. And if he gets into camp and Okorie's just not ready, you got a Kevin Huerter ready to go, and you're fine with that. If someone gets hurt, you got a Kevin Huerter ready to go. You're not going to miss hardly a beat. So I'm with you. I thought that this was actually pretty solid overall, and it just kind of can't hurt You know, like it's one of those deals to me. Like, I just don't know how it goes bad. They can get out of it really quickly. They can always throw them into a trade. There's just kind of no downside. And the upside's actually pretty good.
Yeah, if he can get back to his 5 threes per game and shoot 39% or whatever, that's real nice coming off the bench. Also, are you ready for this transition? He also gets to team up with a former teammate of his.
He does. He sure does. Yes. For a second, you were going for that. I was like, oh, God, who?
I could see the gears.
Yeah.
Turning for you.
Hey, both of them were having career years, by the way, when they were both in Atlanta. So if you want to get excited about something, there you go. Maybe they can rekindle the spark.
Too.
True, very true. Now, I don't know how often both of them will be playing next to the all-star point guard here, but let's talk about the big one, right? Let's talk Lil John Collins. So this was 3 years, $51 million. That works out to just over the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. Okay, so if you thought maybe that he was coming in on the mid-level exception, he's not, which is interesting because it means that this has to be a sign and trade with the Clippers. And we do not know what these terms are yet. So it kind of goes to kind of the theme when we're talking about Pistons transactions here. Like, flexibility is key. We don't even know outside of that Okorie trade to move up, which they only did so that they could have Stewart's salary as outgoing, right, to wait, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to get Okorie into Summer League. Everything's just kind of waiting. We don't know how they're actually going to structure these deals. But all that being said, the final 2 seasons are non-guaranteed. That's from Amari Sankofa II from the Detroit Free Press. His numbers last year in LA, 13.6 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1.6 stocks. He averaged 55 from the floor, 41 from 3, 77 from the free throw line. What did you think of the addition of John Collins?
I think at the beginning of the year or the beginning of the summer when I just like heard of him as a potential like replacement or a potential starter for Detroit, I wasn't thrilled about it. But the more that I've like thought about it after it's happened, I enjoy the fit that he has over what Tobias brought. I think they are equal. Like, I would say they're kind of on an equal level for NBA players, like talent wise. But I think what John does well is different than what Tobias does well. And I think we need more of what John does, or like I think Cade plays better with a player like John than he would like somebody who is as a creator like Tobias, who would go to the post, would ISO and look for a mid-range shot. I enjoy that John is a lob threat where we didn't get that out of Tobias. I like that he provides. He's not a great defender, but can provide a little bit of rim protection, can play a little bit of small ball 5. So the idea of, you know, if you move Duran to the bench and you have Collins playing the 5 with Asar out there, and Asar gets some minutes as the only non-shooter on the court, I'm really intrigued with that concept of John being a stretch 5, where we really didn't use Tobias all that much in that way. So the signing has grown on me more, and I think it's due to what John does well and kind of like the archetype of player that he is. Especially someone who is a threat from deep, who I hope his volume can go up here. I don't think he's ever averaged over 4 3-point attempts per game, and so I want him 5 or more, like if he can. And even if that means his percentage drops to 36, 37 instead of 40, like I would still be cool with that. But also his ability to attack a closeout, kind of do a drive and kick, and really be a better threat at the rim than Tobias could. Overall, I think Collins is a better fit for Detroit than what Tobias did bring the past 2 years.
So you mentioned this, peek behind the curtain, guys. We're all Robbie, I, Blake, as well. We're all in the Detroit Bad Boys Slack channel because we're all writers, contributors over there. And Robbie had brought up this fit argument there, and I had not thought of it before. My preference when we were going into free agency, if we were looking at players that were right around that mid-level exception, I actually preferred Rui Hachimura because he did more of what you just brought up. Right, he can do a little bit off the bounce. He's a better shooter than Harris. I saw that as kind of a more of a clear step forward because you're getting the Harris type production while also adding the 3-point shot that's consistent. But as you brought it up, and as I've been thinking about it, I'm kind of talking myself into it because of what it might mean for Jalen Duren. And that's a weird thing to say, I know, but if you could bear with me for a second. What you just said with John Collins, all right, the things he does well. He's a cutter, he's a rim finisher, he's a shooter, and he's a pick and roll big. If you are someone that thinks Jalen Duren is going to be expanding his kind of repertoire with the ball in his hands, his ability to create for himself, his maybe ability to take a few dribbles, hit a mid-range shot, which I do think that's the direction that he's going to be going. Having a player like John Collins next to him that can space the floor, but that can also act as a pick and roll big, which kind of frees Duren up to roam a little bit. Now, I'm not saying take all of those away from him, but just to throw a little wrinkle in there, I think that's really valuable, especially when you think back to the playoffs and how forcefully teams were trying to take away the pick and roll game from Cade and Jalen Duren, right? If you had a John Collins in that Cavaliers series, and you're asking Jalen Duren to kind of float in the mid-range along the baseline and maybe play out of that space as John Collins is handling a pick and roll, I wonder if that doesn't free things up for the offense a little bit. You're still getting all the benefit of a pick and roll action for Cade with a lob threat that he can connect with. And now you're also releasing Jalen Duren into some space that he just frankly did not see in either of those series. So you've actually started to sell me on it, Robbie. I'm much more of a fan of the Collins edition now than I was when it first broke.
And it's funny, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking of things and I'm like, ooh, I really like if JD has the ball at the high post, let's say, and Tobias could not provide dunker spot like value where Collins can. So the idea too of, kind of, or a baseline cut, how he has found a SAR on a plenty of those, like he can find Collins on those. I'm gonna add this in here. It's a little bit off topic, but it's a little bit on topic, but this thought has crossed my mind. And so I just want to share it with you. But John Collins is who I want Ron Holland to become, but as a small forward, if that makes sense. Somebody who can hit the corner three, not necessarily pick and roll action, you know what I mean? But an athletic guy who is either shooting the three or getting to the rim and then is a good finisher at the rim too.
Sorry, I was on mute there. I was about to go look up John Collins' stats because along those lines, I know in his past he's had some big scoring years. Yeah, so his best season overall was his third year in the league. He was 22 at the time, but he averaged almost 22 points per game and shot, almost 64% on twos that year. And then not last year, but the year before, his final year in Utah, he was up at 19 points per game again. And I bring this up to say that, when we're kind of comparing him to maybe an ideal version of a Ron Holland. I kind of think Collins just has a little bit more want to as a scorer than we've seen out of Ron Holland, and that's something I've actually wanted to see more of out of Holland. I wish he were a little bit more aggressive looking for a shot. I don't know. I don't think that that's going to be a problem here with John Collins. He likes to shoot. 14 points per game playing off of both. At one point, obviously you have Kawhi Leonard, but the guards being some combination of Darius Garland and James Harden. That is impressive. That's a lot of shots for some guards that are not going to him. What's that? Sorry, cut out.
Did he come off the bench in LA as well?
He actually started 56 out of the 69 games he played.
Oh, I assumed Kawhi was at the 4, but maybe he was at the 3.
He was at the 3.
Yeah, the more that I sit on it, basically, or think about the signing, I'm more intrigued about it, and more intrigued about like what they can do on the court to utilize him and his athletic ability, because we really haven't had that at the 4 in quite a while. And I assume he's starting. I guess we still have more of the offseason to go, but I will assume he's starting.
I want to get to a question about that here in a second, but first I just want to throw this out there because it is a question I have had about John Collins since his first couple of years in the league, because, and this pains me to say that this was 10 years ago, but this was really like the first draft class that I really dove into, right, as a Pistons fan. So I studied a lot of John Collins tape as a young man 10 years ago. And he at Wake Forest averaged 1.6 blocks per game that last year. He was a pretty good collegiate shot blocker. And it has just not shown up in the league. Last year, he actually even averaged more steals than he did blocks. More steals than he did blocks. John Collins, the really explosive vertical athlete with some T-Rex arms, more steals than blocks. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I know he's got some of that talent, right? He's got a little bit of weak side rim protector in him. And as a small ball 5, if he's going to handle that role on occasion as a, kind of shift to that backup 5 role when Durant sits down, I'd be really intrigued to see if he can't lean into that a little bit, especially on a team here like the Pistons, where JB Bickerstaff and this coaching staff has really emphasized chase blocks. We don't care about charges. We don't care about fouls. You just go after the ball. I wonder if he can rekindle some of that.
Playing next to a star could help him out in playing with a DPOY candidate, somebody who can, take the main attention away, that can help him with then that weak side rim protection. But as you were saying this, I couldn't help but think about Duran at the same time, as somebody who, like, you look at him and you're like, man, this guy can jump out the gym. He's strong. He's athletic. It's like this guy, you feel like he should be a better defender than he really is. I hate that I made that comparison, and now they're going to be starting in the front court together. But that's what Asar's for. They can't get to the rim if Asar's in the way. So we're good.
Very true. Yeah. Michael Dampier asks, "Isn't John Collins' wingspan sneakily not long?" That's my memory of it as well, and I just looked it up to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. At the combine, measured in at 6'11" and a quarter. No way.
And he's 6'9", maybe.
Let me double check this.
2 inches more, maybe.
Yeah, so it's a +2. It's okay. A +2, which is actually for an NBA player not all that great. Right. But anyway, so that's interesting. So I'm glad I'm not losing my mind on that. All right, with that, mentioned that we're kind of assuming that John Collins is going to start. Richard asks a good question here in our live chat. They have too many guards to be done, right? Is that kind of your vibe? Like, you look at this roster and they are loaded with guards. I mean, they bring back Kevin Huerter. They drafted a guard in Okorie. They bring back Jenkins. They've still got Duncan Robinson. You've still got Marcus Sasser on the roster. You've still got Karis LeVert as well. Like, they have all the guards in the world, it feels like. Early on in the offseason, they were linked to another guard in Tyler Hero. Like, are they just trying to collect as many guards as possible? Or is it possible that they're going to consolidate some of these guys for a front court player that maybe pushes a John Collins? Like, is he safe, I guess, is the question I'm asking.
Yes, they have way too many guards on the roster. I'm trying to think. So point guard wise, I would say it's Cade, Danis, Okorie. I think Sasser is on his way out to Dallas, according to Stein, so I won't count Sasser there. But shooting guard,
Okorie's a point guard in the way that Sasser's a point guard. It's like vertically, point guard. Role-wise, I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel that way with Danis too, where I think either guard can play both positions basically. But shooting guard wise, this is where the I'm most interested, because Isaiah Joe's not going anywhere. You traded for him. Kevin Huerter's not going anywhere. You signed him. So that leaves Chaz Lanier, that drafted last year or a year or two ago. I forget, last year. And then they have LeVert. They have Duncan. And with LeVert being an expiring, I really want to keep Duncan, but I know his contract can be really appealing in a trade. It makes me think that some consolidation is going to happen, and just based salary wise, it seems like you would at least need to use LeVert. I think you and I agree, but this may be a hot take in the Pistons community. I would rather move Holland than move Duncan, and I would rather Duncan be the backup small forward. So I wonder, what can LeVert and Holland and a couple picks bring in? Can it bring in a Trey Murphy? Is Troy asking for 4 picks and just, it's not even worth considering? Who knows? But I do think at some point it's going to be LeVert and either Ron, or LeVert and either Duncan, and probably some picks if they do make a move. And I feel like a bigger move is coming than John Collins being the signing of the summer.
It kind of feels like it. It's tough because you can definitely see a path to kind of running it back with the additions and changes they've already made. Like if you're having a rotation with 10-ish guys, and you're looking at, let's just say, it's Cade, it's Danis, it's Asar, Collins, Duran, Paul Reed, Okorie, Robinson, and Joe, right? That's 10 guys. If that's what you're looking at, like that's good. I can't lie and say that that's not actually better, at least in terms of spacing, than what they had last year. I don't know if that's defensively as good as what they had. I've got personally some questions about a Paul Reed taking that full-time backup role. But, my point is, like, you look at the way the roster is right now, and if you discount LeVert and, you figure Sasser's out, like, it's not actually terribly bad. They don't have a lot of depth in the front court, and that'd be something you worry about. But you could get a veteran minimum, bring back a Javonte Green. Like, they've got paths to just kind of rolling with what they've got now. But at that same token, you look at some of the salaries that they have. Like, LeVert doesn't really factor into playing time, and he's making about the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. That's a lot of money to not have playing. And I thought he was pretty good last year. I just wouldn't want to be playing him over, say, your first round pick, right? In Ebuka Okorie. I think you'd rather have investment in that guy. So you can't just have that sitting on the bench. You got to do something with that. If you're not a front office, if you're not a fan that's really buying into, like, Ron Holland still having a bunch of the potential that you thought he had on draft night, like, he might not have a big role right now. That's a little uncomfortable. And he's earning a good salary. You brought it up. He's earning right about 10-ish, 9-ish to $10 million. So this is all packageable salary to get a bigger name player like you brought up. It kind of feels like that's where it's going. And yeah, Pistons fan brings up Bonga, although I did see a report there that it's not a guarantee he's coming to Detroit. He's still got a pick, and I guess he's got a lot of offers, Isaac Bonga. So maybe we were all too premature on that one, just assuming he was coming to Detroit. But regardless, yeah, I mean, like, it just seems like they're lined up for a big trade in a way that they haven't been these past couple of years.
Yeah, it's funny how Bonga has become the mystery of the summer. Like, is he coming? Right. Is he not coming? Who knows? Yeah, through your scenario, I was listening and I was waiting for LeVert to be in your depth chart or in your rotation. And yeah, and it hurts. I just thought of this as you were talking. It hurts that LeVert is making $15 million and Tobias just signed for $15 million with the Spurs. Yeah. And it's like, that would have been real nice to use that money elsewhere. But that, to me, that's kind of how I'm breaking down the summer so far, is like trying to create what I think the depth chart is of either who I just think is most deserving of the most minutes, or usually I'm biased to shooting, so I prefer people who can shoot, and so just based on the amount of point guards and with Jenkins and Okorie kind of owning those backup guard roles, there's really no room for LeVert, and if I want to keep Duncan, there's really not room for Ron, but I guess he's kind of the backup 4, but I don't think he's a 4. So from going through basically where they're at in the offseason, kind of like how I thought Stu was the odd man out, I now feel like LeVert / Ron / Duncan could be the next odd man out. But the fact that all these trades have not officially been finalized means Trajan and the front office are still cooking something. So we'll see what happens. I'm with you. I still think there's the biggest domino has yet to fall, I think.
And we are still early. I mean, it's fun to talk about all this stuff right now, but like they are 2 days into NBA free agency. There's a lot of time here, guys, for things to change. But since we're talking about players going out, we do have to mention, you already brought up Mark Stein reporting as though the Sasser to the Dallas Mavericks thing is just happening. And I've not seen that anywhere else. We don't know what the compensation would be. So that's just kind of an outstanding thing. Again, to your point of clearly there's more going on because we have no idea other than a very credible reporter says that Marcus Sasser's going to the Mavericks. And then, of course, Tobias Harris. So he signed a 2-year, $31 million contract with, unfortunately, the San Antonio Spurs. The rumor there is that the Pistons didn't want to guarantee more than 1 season. So kind of like the John Collins contract that they did. Collins' first year is guaranteed. The next 2 aren't. And it sounds like Harris didn't want to do that. He wanted more guaranteed money. Now, I don't, based on the fact that he got a little over 15 mil, he probably wasn't going to get the same dollar amount as John Collins, but even so, it seems like that was more of the issue there. What was your, I guess, more reaction to the Harris thing, right? Because there's just so much still up in the air with Sasser.
Yeah, I think this, as much as the Stu one hurt, I almost knew that one was coming, so it didn't hurt as bad. Like I was able to prepare myself for it, but all off season I was like, oh, Tobias will come back for a cheaper deal. He could take the MLE. He can be our backup forward. We can finally get somebody at the 4 that can push him to the bench. He could play the rest of his career in Detroit. I was so set on that being reality. And so I feel like this is the move that has hurt me the most so far this offseason, because just loved having him on the team. And for the Spurs, he's going to be so great for them. He's going to be so exactly everything that he did for us. And I'm not even talking about on the court, strictly off the court, with as good of a dude as he is, as good as mentorship that he brings. He's going to be fantastic for the Spurs. And I just love that he keeps getting into these great situations of helping teams, younger teams, grow. So yeah, the Tobias one I think is the one that has hurt me the most this season, because I was convinced he was coming back, and I thought he would be great in this 6th man forward role. He could play the 3 off the bench, the 4 off the bench, and now even with Collins, we still have this giant hole at power forward. Really bench power forward if dependent on if Collins is starting. But I will say, as you were talking about the contracts and talking about Collins' contract compared to Tobias's, I think if I had to choose between Collins on the deal that Trajan got him on or Tobias on his 2-year deal, I'm taking Collins with his 2 non-guaranteed years, just given the flexibility and giving kind of what we talked about earlier, the fit of what he brings. So as sad as I am about losing Tobias, if I'm comparing the 2 situations, I'm still taking Collins and his contract over Tobias and what he got.
And Collins is a better player too at this point in their career. I know, Harris had the magical run there. He also started off the season really strong, so I don't want to take that away from him either. But, John Collins just has a little more juice in the legs still than Tobias Harris does, as he's going to be going on to 34, 35 over the course of that deal. And it does, I don't know for a fact, obviously, but I do think it's noteworthy that it sounds like the Spurs have him penciled in to start. And I highly doubt that was the scenario in Detroit. What you just explained was what I was envisioning as well, and what it seemed like the plan was. Like, they wanted some sort of front court upgrade. They were linked to a bunch of front court upgrade names, and you figure those weren't coming in to take a SARS spot, right? They were probably going to come and take Tobias Harris. So I was envisioning that kind of Al Horford role for Harris as well, and I'm bummed out that he's not going to get to do it. But yeah, as Richard says, I think this is at the same time a kind of a vote of confidence for the current locker room, right? Like, you knew there was going to need to be turnover. That the core guys are the core guys, and there's really only three, technically right now 2, but according to Trajan Langton's postseason press conference, 3 players that they are for sure building around, and that's Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson, and Jalen Duren. And this is kind of they're taking the training wheels off. You've lost a little bit of your spark plug energy in Isaiah Stewart, some of that defensive identity. You lose that veteran leader in Tobias Harris, the kind of voice of calm in the locker room, another voice of JB Bickerstaff as well. He's gone. Now it really does fall on the shoulders of Cade. It falls on the shoulders of Asar. Jalen Duren, I'm just going to say when he's back, right? Because I feel pretty confident in that one. They got big shoes to fill in terms of that aspect of what Harris brings, because he's world class, I think, in terms of that role, that off the court stuff.
The Al Horford thing is a great comparison, and just because I put him in the Al Horford role of what I wanted him to be doesn't mean that he wanted to take on the Al Horford role. So hey, if he still wants to hoop, he still wants to start and compete, then by all means go do it. And maybe when he's 35, he'll come back to Detroit and he can have his he can retire in Detroit or whatever. We'll do that then.
I'd be a big fan. Fan of that. That'd be funny though. He's got 3 stints in Detroit if that were to happen.
The first player ever, maybe.
Oh man, that's a Keith Black Trudeau question right there. That'd be a good one. We'll have to follow up on that. All right, let's get into some more of the live questions here. This is Richard again. Would I have gone all in for Jaylen Brown? Did the 76ers go all in for Jaylen Brown? I think that's a question that we could ask. I didn't love giving up the unprotected picks that far off into the future, given that it's kind of grenade with the lottery rules. But I love Jaylen Brown, the player. I think Jaylen Brown, the player, is a great fit. I also think that all of the stuff coming out right now about, he's too smart for his own good, all that's BS. I don't buy into any of that at all. I just didn't personally want the off-court stuff with Jaylen Brown. And what I mean by that is all the Twitch streams. I've got a similar concern with Michael Porter Jr. and his podcast. I kind of just want to keep that at arm's length. And then as well, the fact that he very much seems like he wants to go be a dude somewhere like he was for Boston last season, and that he's not going to be with Tatum. And I don't care how many points you score, this is Cade Cunningham's team, and that's not going to change. So I'd be a little worried for that kind of relationship in the locker room too. So I was a little bit more hesitant with it, but I wouldn't have blamed anybody for saying the Pistons should have really sold the farm to try to get him. I get it. He's a great fit. Would have been anyway.
Kind of bizarre that it was like a salary dump for Paul. It was just very salary dump for a salary dump of 2 guys making over $50 million. The whole, he's too smart or whatever, all that was very, very weird. Just
that's
very
just the Celtics
weird
trying
criticism.
to hit him with the door on the way out. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, just the criticism on him has been really, really weird. But as you were talking, Michael Porter Jr. jumped right into my head as well before you even said it, where I was like, yeah, same boat. He'd be a great fit. He'd be a ideal guy on the court. I do not think he would be the ideal guy off the court. So agreed with you there.
And there's just, I think that there's a little bit of personally concern that I have with players that have vocally been, yes, I'm trying to find a way to phrase this without making it sound really negative, because I don't fault the players for actually, going for this, but, like really prioritizing my stats, really prioritizing my role, things along those. I can't blame any of these guys for having that sort of focus. But if you look at what Detroit basketball historically has been, it's very much not that. It's the bad boys kind of decreasing some of their roles so they could fit with Thomas better. It's a bunch of rejects coming into Detroit with the 04 team, and Rasheed Wallace decreasing his scoring quite a bit so he fits in better with that culture. It's all that kind of stuff, kind of the selflessness and toughness and competitiveness. And if you've not been displaying that elsewhere, I'm a little bit hesitant of bringing it in here, even though, admittedly, it'd be fun to watch Jaylen Brown or a Michael Porter Jr. next to Cade Cunningham. This is a good one I just saw because the Tyler Hero thing is not dead. Omari Sankofa II in a recent article has said that something to the effect that there's still interest. It's just, is the price worth it? So we've still got some deliberations there. Don't know necessarily what the price would be, but Michael's asking here, would you trade Ron Holland, Duncan Robinson, and a few second-round picks for Tyler Hero, even though he is on an expiring?
I'm still on board for Hero. I'm very intrigued in Tyler Hero. I think I would do everything in my power to make that LeVert and Duncan instead of Holland in that scenario if you're going to bring on another guard, because at that point, I'm trying to go back to our depth chart. Like, I think Kevin Huerter is your backup small forward if you make this deal. You know what I mean? Because then you don't have Ron, you don't have Duncan to be your backup small forward. Well, it'd be
LeVert probably, actually, right? I mean, LeVert's at least got a little more size there.
I don't want LeVert playing, so yeah. But
well,
yes,
there's that.
So yeah, that's where I'm from a depth standpoint. I would rather give up two guards and keep a forward if I'm bringing a guard back. So I would rather give up Duncan and LeVert, but I don't know. I don't think I would give up a first for Hero or want to give up a first, but it's possible that they would ask for that. But in this scenario, I'm holding on to Holland in this because we need a backup small forward.
Yeah, I'd be hesitant to give a first for Tyler Hero as well. I think the other part of this is, now, admittedly, this is something that JB Bickerstaff has leaned on in the past, going a little bit small. Like Tim Hardaway Jr. was playing the three for long stretches. He started at the three, right, for quite a few games in that first year with JB. But so my point is, Isaiah Joe is kind of a weird fit now. If you get Tyler Hero and you have Okorie and you have Danis Jenkins, like that's a lot of 6'4" and under guards that you'd be varying levels of concern with playing minutes at the three if they're all going to get minutes. And I just assume at this point they will. I think Tyler Hero is a great fit, though, offensively next to Cade. So I would get it. And if we're talking size of the backups with guards and wings, it's usually not a big deal. Like, you're not guarding LeBron James as the backup three. You're guarding other backup threes, and you'll probably be okay. Like if you have to have Isaiah Joe guarding a DeAndre Hunter, I don't think that's the end of the world, is kind of my point. So I think with this deal, like if you're going to give up Duncan Robinson, you have to get back a shooter like Hero. So I would get it. I would also very much push for LeVert. And honestly, if LeVert being included means that you're going to have to do like a pick swap, I'd probably consider it at that point.
Me too. Right. Can I ask you a question? I just thought of a question that I think.
Absolutely. This is a mailbag show.
So with them drafting Okorie, and I guess we still got to figure out what the guard room looks like because there's just so many. And I would not be surprised if Okorie gets minutes to start the year. I would not be surprised if he doesn't get minutes to start the year. With Danis Jenkins as kind of like the backup point guard, they're using him. They accepted his team option or whatever. He's basically a restricted free agent at the end of next year. He's only making $4 million. Does Jenkins Does Okorie almost make Jenkins like a trade asset in a way? Like, or I'm also thinking future wise, like, is Okorie the plan for backup point guard? And at that point, with all the guard, I know the guard question will get answered hopefully in the next week or so. But with them drafting Okorie and with Danis needing to be paid, granted, we can pay him whatever. It just, as you were talking, it just made me wonder, like, I wonder what the plan is with Danis just long term outside of this next season.
I'll be totally honest with you, Robbie. In my book right now, Danis is starting at the 2. That's just how I see this. You know, if right now the season started, he'd be my pick. I'd want Duncan Robinson there at the backup 3, like you mentioned. He's got the size for it. It's a much more specialized role. We can hide the defense a little bit better. And with now picking between Isaiah Joe or Danis Jenkins, Jenkins shot really well off the catch and just offers so much more as a ball handler, which with losing Tobias Harris, they especially need. So if things are where it is right now, I'd be leaning to Danis Jenkins. All that goes out the window, though, if you're going to bring in like a Tyler Hero. And I think, too, if you're looking at maybe Danis starts for the majority of those games, what's his price going to be? Like, if he plays really well and shows he's actually a very, pretty good starter as an NBA guard, now you've gone from thinking you could get him from somewhere to like 10 to 12 to having to pay him quite a bit more than that. And that's a little bit uncomfortable for me as well. So I think it's kind of fluid, but until they add significant other ball handling, I wouldn't want to lose the 6'4" combo guard who can shoot it pretty well and is a high effort defender and the second best playmaker on the team. I think Okorie is the second best isolation scorer on the team, which is a little bit unsettling as a 19-year-old rookie. But like, if you're just asking me who I'd give the ball to and say, go get a bucket from the perimeter, it's Okorie. Duran has an argument, but I'd probably lean Okorie just for a guard. If you're asking me someone to go out and handle a ball screen and go make a play for someone, it'd be Danis Jenkins. I think you kind of need both of those guys right now until someone else can take it away. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So your bench lineup currently would be Okorie, Joe, Duncan. You're playing Ron at the 4, and then Paul Reed. Okay.
Yeah.
So interesting.
And
no
with
Huerter.
that, think about no Huerter, but think about like from the perspective of making a rookie guard situation as easy as humanly possible. I present to you that bench lineup.
Yeah, and you're playing behind Cade Cunningham, like you,
right? Like,
you're as
like
good
you
of a
could not
situation
be more
as you
set
could be
up
in.
for success.
Yes,
I think it'd look good.
I think my dream, which right now they cannot do it, but I think I want them to just take advantage of how big they are with Cade at point guard, and I think if they could get like a forward that forces a SAR to shooting guard, and you're getting your extra playmaking and ball handling right now from Danis. That's why you're throwing him in at the 2 there. And correct. I'm basically trying to move a SAR up and then find somebody who can provide that from the forward spot. Much harder for you to find. You got to find that in the trade market, Yeah. So that's why I'm still hoping that big deal is still out there. But yeah, my dream is really a SAR starts at the 2 because you've got 2 guys at the forward spot who can both, dribble and shoot.
Well, here's a name that could make that happen. We'll go through these last 2 questions here from KDA a little bit more quickly as we're kind of wrapping this up. But DeMar DeRozan's a guy who can certainly make a play for himself and for others. Even played point guard for a little bit there when he was with San Antonio a while back. Now, he's getting a little bit older, but KDA here asks, will the Pistons make a move for DeMar DeRozan if he's waived? I would up this. What if you can just kind of get DeMar DeRozan for Karis LeVert and some change, right? Is this a target you'd be interested in since apparently he's asked out of Sacramento?
I feel like DeRozan just does not fit well on this team at all. He's kind of just played power forward more as, he's kind of gone further and further down the lineup.
A few years now too, yeah.
Yeah, due to his lack of shooting. And it's funny that KDA asked this because I looked up earlier, just thinking about the same thing. My fun fact for this is Ron Holland shot more threes per game than DeMar DeRozan did. So if Detroit has spacing issues with everything they've got going on already, I'm not trying to add a guy that shot less than 2 threes per game and also just doesn't shoot it at a high level. So from a scoring standpoint, like I get it as a guy who can provide like, dribble pass shoot from the wing, but I just think I want that shooting to come from behind the 3-point line. I think Cade, Asar, Duren already own basically inside the 3-point line. So I want to give them as much space as possible. So I would rather have somebody that can shoot the three well than to bring on DeRozan.
Real quick, before I ask you a question here, a YouTube user says that I do not care about rebounds or defense in that second unit, apparently. I do, and well, those are literally my concerns with Paul Reed as the backup center. So I mentioned offhand earlier, I'm a little worried about that this is exactly why, YouTube user, I completely agree with you. But to what you're saying with DeMar DeRozan, I agree. So I'm just going to devil's advocate you for a second here, because this kind of comes up with the Kevin Huerter conversation I've had with some other people. It's not always how good of a shooter you are. It's how you get guarded by the other team. And Kevin Huerter has the reputation as a shooter. Teams guard him like a shooter. That was kind of my argument against Isaiah Stewart early on when he was playing the 4 when next to Jalen Duren under Monty Williams. Because even though he was shooting a good percentage, teams didn't really guard him as a shooter because they knew they could fly by him and he never would be able to put the ball on the floor and make a play. The defense won if he dribbled the ball. So DeMar DeRozan's got some of that going on with him. By some of that, I mean Kevin Huerter. They don't guard him as though he's a knockdown 3-point shooter, but he is still a very good athlete, so you can't give him a lot of space because he will blow by you. And he's very good out of the mid-range, so you can't just sag all the way off like an Asar Thompson or comedically a Ben Simmons style defense, right? You can't do that with DeRozan. So it's not as though he would be a fantastic floor spacer, but the effect would be similar to what you saw out of Tobias Harris. It's guys kind of standing a few feet away, a little bit longer than arm's reach away from DeMar DeRozan, not sinking all the way into the paint, because you know that he can one dribble pull up from mid-range and shoot it. Is that enough to alleviate that floor spacing concern?
I like that if he's basically a guard on this roster. Like, I would want the ball to be in his hands. I would want him to be in pick and roll settings. Like, I, in a way, kind of use him like Cade, but on a bench unit, basically, of a guy who can kind of have the ball in his hands. And if he gets a screen and he's 15 feet away from the basket and has an easy fadeaway, then go ahead and let it rip. But I think this team's biggest hole right now is backup power forward. And if they were to bring him on to play power forward, because with our, bench lineups that we're coming up with, we are putting the ball in Okorie's hands, Danis's hands. Like, I would rather the ball be in their hands and for them to get playmaking experience as the guy with the rock, as opposed to, I feel like with DeRozan on this team, he kind of has to have the ball in his hands, I guess, to take away from that. But I guess now that I'm thinking about it, you kind of put some shooters, like Okorie can hopefully shoot off ball. Danis can hopefully shoot off ball. I mean, he showed a little bit. So, I just think there's a better fit, but I think there's if you squint hard enough, it starts to look good. Yeah.
To be totally fair to DeRozan too, like I have long loved his game. He ever since his days in Toronto, it's one of my favorite players to just watch. He's just very fun. Very, very good player. He probably wouldn't be coming off the bench, and that would give me all the concerns in the world that you brought up before I brought up the devil's advocate position. So I still agree with what you said before, but yeah, it would at least be interesting. It'd be entertaining. I think of all the names we've been talking about, like Okorie, Jenkins, those guys, I am a little worried still about, should you really be taking the ball out of Cade's hands and giving it to them? Right, they're both so unproven at this point. you wouldn't have that worry with DeRozan. DeRozan's a good enough playmaker where have him take the pressure off Cade. I just think the issue is he probably pushes Collins to the bench, which helps my valuation of Collins, but makes me much more worried about the floor spacing in the starting lineup.
Yes,
let's end
sure.
on this because we've gotten a couple of these. I think let's see, Relax World here in the live chat asking about Trey Murphy, KDA, as well as a Trey Murphy deal in the works. I'll let you just kind of take the floor and we'll end on this. A lot of Pistons fans want Trey Murphy III out of New Orleans. It seems like Troy Weaver, Joe Dumars, the brass down in Louisiana want everything in the world in return for a Trey Murphy. I joked today online that at this point it seems more likely Paolo Banchero gets traded than Trey Murphy, and that's not because Paolo Banchero is in any way likely to be traded, and I don't get that, but so that's more a comment on them. But yeah, like, is the dream dead, I guess? Robbie, what do you think? Is still a shot?
I hope not. I need this dream to be alive. I need this dream to become my reality. I don't want to dream about it anymore. I want it to become reality. There are too many connections. There are too many, like, this is a Cinderella story. This is a match made in heaven here, with Trajan drafting him. I think he even traded up to get Trey Murphy.
He did.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, he was the assistant GM, but they did. Yeah.
They did. Yes. He was a part of that. So they're just, I to what I said maybe 10, 15 minutes ago about moving Asar to the 2, Trey Murphy allows this to happen. He would slide right in the middle between Asar and Collins. He, to me, is kind of your Duncan Robinson replacement, but with a guy who is catching lobs like Asar can. Like, again, another lob threat for Cade. Like, I'm trying, like, a Cade, Asar, Trey, Collins, Duren starting lineup. Cade can play quarterback, and every single one of those guys is alley-ooping at the rim. The gravity that Trey brings, the contract that he's on. You have him under team control, like 3 years for $75 million. I'm getting to the, maybe this is just me being impatient, but I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I don't care what it costs. Like, go get him. It rounds out this roster so well. I mean, maybe you still have a hole at the backup power forward, but like, I would be so ecstatic with the entire offseason of Trajan really acquiring so much shooting, the shooting that like we've been wanting to put around Cade, while also, I think, allowing Asar and Duren to succeed in the same environment as well. Like, it benefits them too. So yes, this is my pitch to Trajan. Please bring Trey here. I think he's the ideal guy to start at the 3 for this team.
All right, last thing real quick. If it is, let's see, Duncan Robinson, Ron Holland, 4 unprotected picks. You said there was no limit. You said do it.
As I said that, I was like, what is something?
Because that's the rumor. That is the rumor, right? Like, they're saying it was 4. Now maybe there's a rumor that they've talked themselves down, using scare quotes here, to 3 first-round picks. Like,
I mean,
are you mean that?
That's the biggest trade of the summer, right? Is more like Walker Kessler, I think, is who basically fetched the most from a pick standpoint. So that would be more.
This would basically be the Mikal Bridges deal, right? Like that seems like what they want, which is fair because I think Murphy and Bridges are comparable players.
I don't think I would do that one. So maybe I lied.
Walks it back immediately.
Three first. All right, you're in for 3. 4 is the limit. That's where we draw the line. It's still too much. Oh man, Trajan's got a hard job.
He does. But hey, it's early. There's going to be a lot of time for more deals to take place here over the next few weeks. And we got Summer League just around the corner. That's starting up next week, actually, crazy enough. So Robbie, we're going to have you coming on for all of those Summer League episodes as well, which will be a great time. We're looking forward to that. In the meantime here, though, why don't you let everyone know where they can find your work, find everything you've been doing online, and we'll kind of wrap it up from there.
Yep. You guys can follow me on Blue Sky or Twitter at BobbyBuckets313, and then be sure to check out DetroitBadBoys.com. We're multiple articles a day right now with all the news going on. So if you're looking for Pistons
and Sean
content,
just had a great one on Tobias Harris too.
Yeah, like a farewell to Tobias. That was a really, really good piece. Yeah. So yeah, if you're looking for Pistons content, Detroit Bad Boys has it.
All right, man. So I'm going to butcher this outro, but do please remember to like and subscribe. All right. Those do help us grow. So you can do that on Apple. You can do that on Spotify, obviously here on YouTube as well. It does help us out for algorithm purposes. I think actually you could leave comments now on Spotify as well. And we read those. So if you do, you just know we're reading it. We like it. We appreciate it. Our number for leaving a voicemail, hearing your voice on the show, one of our favorite things we do here, that would be 313-355-2717. Of course, a special thank you to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. Shout out to you guys for all of the great questions, talking points here today. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you.